Hello everyone. I welcome all ACE attendees to my presentation. My name is Dwij and I will be analyzing economic impacts of taxes, generative AI, and behavioral economics. A tax creates a wedge between the price consumers pay and the price producers receive, changing the original market equilibrium, E1. Following the implementation of a tax, consumers face a higher price while producers receive a lower price than the pre-tax equilibrium. This results in the shift in demand, depicted as the new demand curve below the original one. The new intersection of the demand and supply curves, known as the social equilibrium, determines the reduced price received by producers and increased price paid by consumers. Taxes generally reduce the profitability of a sector, potentially leading to a decline in production. Both consumer and producer welfare are affected, as shown by the reduction of consumer and producer surplus. The surplus represents the gains from market participation from both consumers and producers. However, a portion of these surpluses is redirected to the government as tax revenue, while the remainder is lost entirely as deadweight loss. The deadweight loss represents the inefficiency and overall economic loss caused by reduced market activity due to taxation. Taxes often disrupt market dynamics, resulting in a reduction in welfare for all market participants and an economic loss shown as the deadweight loss. This diagram shows the impacts of a tariff on imports using a supply and demand framework. The blue line represents the demand curve, and the orange line represents the supply under different scenarios: domestic supply only, which is without imports, and free trade supply, which is with imports. The red line represents the supply curve after a tariff or tax is added. Before the tariff, the equilibrium price is determined by the intersection of the demand curve and the free trade supply curve, leading to a higher quantity of imports. With the tariff, the supply curve shifts upwards, reflecting the additional cost of importing goods. This increases the price consumers pay and reduces the quantity of imports they buy. The domestic producer surplus increases since they can sell more. The green rectangle shows the government revenue generated by the tariff, while the gray triangles represent the deadweight losses. The deadweight loss is the areas where economic efficiency is lost due to reduced trade. Even though tariffs are similar to the government taxes from the previous question, there is a difference in the deadweight loss that both cause. While both the deadweight losses reduce market efficiency, tariffs distort international trade and incentivize inefficient domestic production, creating additional deadweight loss compared to regular tax. There are two different scenarios that generative AI can have on labor market inequality. Scenario 1 is reducing inequality. Generative AI could increase access to specialized skills, enabling workers without formal education to utilize AI tools for productivity. For instance, AI-powered design or coding tools could encourage people to compete in higher-paying jobs which were previously restricted to those with advanced qualifications. This increases the supply of skilled labor, shown by the shift in the supply curve from S1 to S2 in the first diagram. The larger pool of skilled workers leads to reduced wage inequality, as the market would adjust to the increasing availability of talent. This promotes inclusivity by enabling more people to compete for higher paying jobs. Scenario 2. Increasing inequality. On the other hand, generative AI might widen inequality. Automation could replace low-skilled jobs, decreasing demand for this type of labor. The diagram shows this with the demand dropping from D1 to D2 for low-skilled workers. At the same time, high-skilled workers who can use AI effectively may see a rise in demand and wages, further increasing the gap between high and low-skilled workers, contributing to more inequality. These outcomes depend on access to AI tools and upskilling opportunities. Generative AI can influence productivity and economic output. Let's consider two scenarios: boosting productivity and unchanged productivity. Scenario 1. Boosting productivity. Generative AI can enhance productivity by automating tasks, improving efficiency, and fostering innovation. This leads to a rightward shift in both the long-run and short-run aggregate supply curves, as shown in the diagram. The increased output lowers the production costs and stabilizes price levels, which therefore promotes economic growth. The initial equilibrium point, labeled as point A, represents the state of the economy before AI integration. Here, the aggregate demand intersects with short-run and long-run aggregate supply. When generative AI improves productivity, both short-run and long-run aggregate supply curves shift rightward to intersect at a new equilibrium point, labeled as point B. At point B, the economy operates at a higher output level while seeing a decrease in prices. This happens because productivity gains reduce the cost of production, allowing businesses to supply more goods and services without raising prices. It is important to state that employment remains the same as it does not change from point A to point B. For example, AI tools in industries such as manufacturing or logistics can streamline operations, which will result in higher output without significant price increases. Scenario 2: Unchanged productivity. If generative AI fails to integrate effectively into workflows or is inaccessible to businesses, productivity may remain unchanged, leading to unchanged economic output. In this scenario, both the long-run and short-run aggregate supply curves remain constant, as shown in the second diagram. Similarly, the aggregate demand curve also remains unchanged, reflecting a lack of significant economic shifts. This state is referred to as long-run equilibrium, where aggregate demand equals both the long-run and short-run aggregate supply. At this equilibrium, the unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate, indicating that the economy is operating at full employment. However, the lack of productivity gains implies missed opportunities for growth, innovation, and improvements to living standards. With productivity remaining unchanged, the economy becomes vulnerable to external shocks such as inflation or recessions. Policymakers may need to intervene through fiscal policies to stimulate growth. These diagrams help visualize how generative AI's integration impacts economic output and price levels in the economy. Behavioral economics helps explain why individuals choose unhealthy food options despite a preference for healthier alternatives with concepts like preference reversals and prospect theory. Unhealthy food choices often involve preference reversals, where people prioritize immediate gratification from eating tasty but unhealthy foods over the long-term benefits of healthier options. For example, a person might choose fast food because it provides immediate predictable payoffs like convenience, affordability, and taste. These short-term benefits are prioritized over the potential long-term health risks. On the other hand, a risk-taking person may knowingly eat junk food, seeing it as a gamble on short-term pleasure, even if they recognize that it offers a lower overall value in terms of their health in the future. Prospect theory further explains this behavior by highlighting how people evaluate losses and gains differently. People might perceive the effort, time, or financial cost of switching to healthier foods as a loss and overemphasize its impact compared to the gain of better healthy outcomes. For instance, some people might avoid buying fresh produce because the cost feels significant compared to cheaper unhealthy snacks, even though they offer no long-term benefits. Thank you all for listening to my presentation.